On this episode of Doing the Most, 5 months after we asked for your questions, we're going to do an AMA.
Ask BC anything in the past.
From 5 months ago.
Homemade brews and various how-tos, everything from mead to roast, bake creation, fermentation, inebriation, doing the most.
All right, we got a bucket here.
In a bucket?
So we decided in the interest of timeliness, we're going to set a timer for 15 minutes, and we're just going to see how many we can get through in 15 minutes.
How many do you think we can get through?
I don't know, 10?
10?
You think more?
Maybe if we try to go really fast, if you're not verbose.
Let's go.
Okay.
Let's count down.
This is from Michael Wyatt.
Okay.
What's the worst thing you've brewed?
Probably that time, that's going to be fun to clean up. Probably that time that I brewed wine inside of a watermelon. Do you remember? Did you try that?
I know, I think I was pregnant, so I did not have to.
David said it smelled like a composted cucumber or something like that.
I mean, that's probably pretty accurate.
It was bad.
This is from Matthew LaCroix.
No, from the sparkling water
of the LaCroix.
Air to the sparkling water thrown.
This is not as relevant as it was 4 months ago. Effective ways to keep fermenters warm in the cooler months.
You can use like a germination mat underneath or around, depending on your fermenter, to keep it warm.
Or you can just give it a good cuddle.
Give it a nice hug. You could pair that with like an ink bird, so it's like a digital thermostat that goes down inside the fermenter and it'll cycle the power to the heating mat. So that way it's keeping it at the same temperature rather than letting the heating mat go crazy.
That's fancy.
You could put it in like a water bath with a sous vide. So that way it's recirculating the water and keeping it at a certain temperature, or you can just do it in a water bath. Put it in your freaking bathtub, a water bath, and then just change out the water here and there to keep it warm.
What do you think about like putting it up high? Depending on if it's like a 5 gallon.
5 gallon carboy.
But if it's a 1 gallon carboy.
Yeah, you can put it up. You can put it on top of your fridge, same way you would sourdough bread.
Okay.
Sure.
This is from Melpomene. What do the initials BC stand for?
British Columbia. Phillips.
This is from Sandon S. Why are birds?
Are birds even real if our eyes aren't real?
Are our eyes not real?
I think so.
Oh. This is from Michael Borland. No, Michelle Borland. I'm trying to go fast. Okay, this is a real question.
Okay.
I started a raspberry jalapeno jam wine yesterday, 5 months ago.
5 months and 1 day ago.
My favorite so far, I added Go Firm and yeast in water, which I've never done. Nothing happened. I normally just add the yeast straight, but I've been working on my process, so I bought that and Fermento along with sulfites and sulfates to have more control. I'm wondering if my yeast is dead since it didn't bubble in the glass. Shrug emoji.
Not necessarily. Depending on the type of yeast, they could have a really long lag phase, and so it could just be the type of thing where your starter visually may take 24 hours to see any activity. And if that's the case, that's the case. Usually you're going to rehydrate for 15 to 20 minutes and then just chuck it in. Typically with those dry yeast packets, I don't worry about it. I presume that they're fresh. I presume that they've taken off. And then if I don't see activity in the fermenter after 2 or 3 days, then I'll start to get concerned.
I'm going to guess that Michelle knows now whether or not.
Yeah, Michelle, let us know. How'd that turn out?
I have an overly sweet oaked cherry mead with 7% ABV, thinking about turning it into a Christmas braggot. Would it be wise to ferment a separate batch of ale and just mix the two together? Cheers. Oh, this is from Ryman93.
That's an interesting choice. Yeah, sure. You know.
Is it a braggot?
It would kind of be a braggot,
or is
yeah.
it like a blended mead beer?
You could file it under braggot. Yeah, you could brew like a 7 to 8% beer and then blend them together so there's like not a lot of dilution. Hope for the best. That's not really a great way of doing it. It's usually for blending, you would want to do bench trials where you like try a 60-40 and a 50-50 and a 40-60 and figure out what that looks like. But, you know, whatever. You probably finished it by now.
Yeah, let us know how your Christmas bracket turned out.
Merry Christmas.
This is from S. Smith. How important is it to you to rehydrate your yeast before pitch? It's not very clear in your videos on whether or not, or does it just depend, and why? Thanks. Cheers.
It kind of depends on if I'm in the mood for rehydrating. And I catch flack for this from the more advanced mead makers out there in the world, but I've just like never really experienced like a dramatic like light bulb, like life-changing moment rehydrating my yeast. And so usually it's a thing I'll do if I'm like a little bit concerned, like the yeast may be a little old, or if I'm, you know, pulling a packet from the back of the fridge and I just like don't know when it was in there. Or if I'm doing something that's like a really, really big mead that I've spent a lot of money on, I'm more likely to rehydrate my yeast just as an insurance policy. But, you know, I've been making wine for over a decade and I've always just thrown the yeast in dry. And so I kind of do the same thing with mead, even though it's not necessarily best practice.
But you like using your stir plate occasionally.
It's fun, yeah.
And you see, like, the benefit of that.
The benefit of using the stir plate is I usually start it the day before, so I've passed through lag phase by the time I've pitched the yeast into my wort or my must. And so I don't have a 24-hour wait to see if my yeast is active. My yeast goes in very active right at the beginning. And the benefit of that is that you can throw in your first, if you're making a mead, you can throw in your first nutrient addition when you pitch your yeast because you're already past the 24-hour mark.
This is from Ben Bu. Do you have any tips or hints regarding adding fruits, herbals, or coffee into homebrew beers? Especially the idea of adding coffee into some dark beers sounds nice, but difficult.
Yeah, so for fruits and things, if you've got like a small fruit load, add that in secondary. Use a straining bag, muslin bag, nut milk bag, something like that in secondary to strain that out. For coffee, use powdered instant espresso. Like why brew coffee when you can basically dose with a measured amount of coffee? You can do bench trials again for that, or you could just add a couple grams, taste it a couple days later, add a couple more grams, taste it a couple days later, and go that way. But yeah, I mean that's the cheat that they do in cooking. They're not adding coffee to cake batter; they're adding instant espresso.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, this is from Doghouse Fishing. Looking at bulk yeast, is it okay to buy the 500-gram bulk pack and measure it out per batch? Also, I'm making my second mead and doing a 10-gallon
This is a 2-for-1.
in a Blickman fermenter.
What the heck?
5 gallons, is going to be blueberry, but what's the other fruit that might go with a traditional?
You can part it out if you want, keep it in the back of your fridge so it's nice and cool, but you don't necessarily want to freeze it. And yeah, you can use it for months. 6 months to a year should be fine.
Okay, so
And then fruit that's not blueberries,
that goes with a traditional.
raspberries are great.
This is from
Oh
your
man, we got so much time.
friend Casey Wolf.
Hey, Casey.
Have you attempted any wild ferments? That watermelon. I guess not really.
No, I put
yeast.
yeast.
If
Yeah.
so, what? If not, why not? I've dipped my toes this cider season with fantastic results. No vinegar, Band-Aids, or horse blanket.
Well, that's great for Casey. That is fortunate luck for Casey. There are wild things that can get into your wild ferments that will cause the very faults that Casey is talking about there. I haven't done it because I don't want to introduce something into all of my gear and equipment that could possibly infect future batches. And so I stay away from wild ferments and I try and control the conditions going into fermentation to make sure there's nothing wild in there. Recently, I got my first ever batch of accidental vinegar.
That's true.
And every piece of equipment that touched that vinegar, other than the glass jug, but the plastic bucket, the hoses, the auto siphon, all that stuff left the brew room never to come back because I didn't want the off chance that could continue reinfecting batches. It's just a thing that I don't care to do.
If you had another room to brew in,
I'm still not that interested in wild
you just
ferments.
don't care.
Well, I treat yeast as one of the most important ingredients when I'm brewing something. And wild yeast is like letting the universe choose one of those important ingredients for you. It's like when our buddy Man-Made Mead like spins that wheel for ingredients. It's like letting the universe spin your wheel. I'm not interested in doing that.
Okay, this is from Chef Life 247. Are you going to bring back Brew Lab on Twitch? That was really fun.
It was really fun, and that was a similar thing, like spinning a wheel. But I can't commit to that because we had a baby in November, and 2 to 4 hours worth of stream time every weekend is hard to schedule.
Okay, we've got less than 5 minutes.
Less
Let's
than
go
5 minutes.
as fast as we can.
Let's
This
do
is
it.
from Nick. Can you make a mead with the same process as making a sour beer?
Yes. Yes. I would caution if you're using something like Philly sour, it goes crazy in the presence of glucose, so you want to be careful with that. Maybe if you're doing a sour mead with Philly sour, treat it as a kettle sour. But yeah, standard practices apply. Just be aware of how your microbes are converting your sugars and what that means for your pH.
Kyle Charme says, what is your favorite style of mead to make and or drink?
Session meads, particularly the crispy hydromel.
Sandon S says, will you attempt a 5-gallon batch of the jam wine? Also, will you attempt with another type of fruit?
I would love to do a 5-gallon jam wine. I do jam wines when jam's on sale. And so if it was on enough sale for me to get enough to do a 5-gallon batch, which would be, 15 to 20 pounds of jam, sure, maybe. But it's usually a small batch, 1 or 2 gallon thing if I'm doing jam wine because, typically jam wine is not planned for me. Yes, and I would experiment with any fruit you can get.
Dill Digger says, what's your favorite melomel?
Dill digger? Like he dills digs or he digs dills?
I mean, I think it was,
What was the question?
What's your favorite melomel? I think that's what it was now.
Yeah, no, that's probably what it was. Blueberries. Blueberries make the best melomel, especially with like a nice heavy-handed oaking.
Okay, focus and listen. Chef Life 247 says,
Wait, haven't he already asks one. Is it a good one?
Pat Delicio says, if you could only use one yeast for all of your brews, which one would you pick and why?
Probably Kveik Lutra.
Thomas Watson says, banana date molasses wine. What would you add to balance it?
And this reminds me of when I used to work at Radio Shack. Someone would just come up and be like, 16 ohm resistor.
It's from Thomas Watson. I think some acid.
Yeah, you probably need a little pop of acid in there.
That's a lot of
Who
flavors.
freaking knows? Molasses can take over a brew pretty quick, so you might just need to dilute it with something else.
Colin Sundin says, hi BC, what's a project that you were pleasantly surprised by the outcome? Like you expected a great result and ended up with a better result?
Butterbeer.
And bonus question, what's your favorite brewing spice?
Wow, that's actually a difficult... What? It's a difficult question because I don't like fermented spices.
Okay, what's the one you like the
I have enjoyed brewing with sumac.
Okay. Colin Brown, have you used Nova Twist bottle caps? I found them to be a great alternative to corking.
No, I don't know what they are.
Leave a comment. Let us know.
Yeah, if you work at Nova Twist,
Super Chai asks, are prunes nutrients?
they probably have slight amounts of yeast assimilable nitrogen.
Larry Rayo asks, what's your favorite project and your least favorite project?
Going back, I think my favorite project was the butterbeer because it was so much fun to tackle. Least favorite project, probably currently it's this hopped session mead because it has just like escaped me and it's been just a real pain in the butt. And I have like hops from a year ago that I still need to use.
George Hart asks, what are some ways you can add coconut to a brew?
Coconut rum. Dried coconut in secondary.
Matt Hunt asks, when back sweetening, is there a specific gravity that correlate to how sweet it tastes?
No, it
And
depends on your acid and tannin.
And
What's the other half of this? We'll give them.
How do you know what you like?
You taste it. Everybody likes different things.
Okay, I want to count how many we did.
I think one went into the Starzan bucket.
Is that the one from Chef?
No, this one was from Pat Delicio. I bet Pat makes some Delicio meads. What do you think?
23, 24, minus 1, 23.
23. We answered 23 questions.
there's
Covered
only-
23 different topics in just 15 minutes.
There's only this many left.
Well, sorry, suckers.
You said you thought we could do 10, right?
That's true. I did say
So
that.
we did almost 2.5 times the amount that you thought we could do.
Thank you for moderating this
You're
exercise.
welcome.
Thank you for sending in your questions. If you have other questions, we'll answer them in the comments for the first 24
Yeah.
hours or so.
If it's 5 months from now and you're watching this video,
Sorry about
join
you.
the Discord,
But-
which is,
Discord.doingthemost.org.
if you're not on Discord, Instagram's also an option, which
Yeah.
is
Doing the most okay. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sending in your questions. Thank you for watching. As always, stay safe out there. Happy brewing and cheers.